when it's a female teacher and a male student, we seem to think, oh, there's something different about this, and those kind of almost get sensationalized. Yeah. Should they be?
The relationship, intimate relationship between a teacher and a student is not only inappropriate, it knows no gender boundaries. There's no difference in terms of the inappropriateness, whether that's a male teacher with a female student or a female teacher with a male student, because what you're talking about is a difference in emotional power, and that difference in emotional power between the teacher and the student is if you will, it's independent of gender. It's there regardless of whether it's a male or a female. So we should not be treating it differently, because it's not appropriate no matter what the gender circumstance is.
One of my goals with this story is to give parents the tools they need to help educate their teenagers about, this is a blurred line, this is an area, this is where you want to be aware, and this is what you should do about it if you find yourself in this situation.
Well, there's two parts to that. Number one, for the teenager or for the students, it is common for students to develop very close, intimate feelings with their teachers. Now, it doesn't always have to be intimate from a sexual standpoint, but to feel very bonded, very connected. That's common. What's hard for teenagers is sometimes that is interpreted as love, as infatuation, as lust, those kinds of things. So teenagers need to be educated about why those feelings occur, what they mean, and what they need to do with them. Now, what we want and what we hope is that while teenagers will have those feelings, and that is normal, we want teachers to be in a position to shut those down, to shut that down, to do it in a kind way, but to let the student know that, yes, you may feel this way towards me, but this is not a good relationship for us to have. That's what we expect our teachers to do. And in most cases, that's exactly what happens.
For teenagers and social media and cell phones and Facebook and all of that communication that can now happen outside of the 8 hours that they are in school, for parents to be aware, because by the time they're 16, 17, you're kind of thinking, oh, I don't want to be going through their cell phone, checking their messages, but should you?
That's a really hard thing for parents, because we want to give our teenagers, particularly as they're growing up, that respect and the privacy. But I will tell you this, as a parent, it is much better to err on the side of safety than on the side of privacy. When it all boils down, it is your child, they are living in your home, they are living under your roof, and they do not know how to navigate the world the way you do. So as uncomfortable as you may feel, you still need to be in charge of their connections, their social connections. Now, how you go about it is really the difference between doing it in a respectful way and in a respectful, authoritative way, but also in a way that says, ultimately, if you live here and you live with me, I am in charge. That's okay to do. And really, at its core, if your teen's got nothing to hide, then they've got nothing to hide. And that's something, I know that sounds a little cliche, but it's true. It's when your teen is hiding from you, and when they're hiding information, that's the very time that you should be feeling nervous. And if they got nothing to hide, then it should be okay to periodically check.
This will be my last question, just to talk a little bit about the aftermath, because what we see in the news media is that this seems to be happening a lot. And even if it's not, even if it just seems to make headlines now because we hear about it more with Alabama's change in laws, what of the aftermath for the teenager who's been in that situation? I imagine they end up talking to a clinical psychologist.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a highly traumatic experience, even if it's a consensual relationship. I mean, the consensual is a little bit hard to define when it's that dual, what we call a dual relationship. So when the student is in a position where the teacher is in power, the student develops feelings towards the teacher may develop feelings towards the student. It's never okay, it's never appropriate. When it's over, even if it was mutual, now you have a student who's not only dealing with some very tough feelings in terms of the relationship and what they thought of the teacher, etc., but now the public aspect of it. the fact that other students may know, the fact that if the teacher was let go, that's a story in and of itself. So you have a child who's dealing with a whole lot of public information. That is a child, no matter how well they think they're doing, who should be talking to a mental health professional for at least a period of time to make sure that the strong emotions, the feelings that are there, which may not happen immediately after the breakup of the relationship, are dealt with over the next several months, maybe over the next year or so.
I said that was my last question, but this is my last question, because in Alabama we have the age of consent law at 16,
Yes.
which may make it illegal for the teacher now to have the relationship with the student in the school, but for the adult in your community and the 16-year-old, the 40-year-old neighbor can very well be having this relationship with your 16-year-old daughter, and it's legal. Is there a boundary for the 16, 17, 18-year-old? Should they be dating 25, 30-year-old people, men, women?
The biggest challenge here is that age exists on a continuum. So the difference between a relationship with a 16-year-old and a 30-year-old versus an 18-year-old and a 25-year-old, as the ages start changing and getting closer together, it becomes a much more difficult topic to interpret. Also, there's no set rules. I mean, for every group of relationships that doesn't work out, there is that one that it does. But if we're going to talk about general rules, or we're going to talk about guidelines, a 16-year-old does not have, on average, the emotional maturity to be in an adult relationship, on average. And as a parent, we should make that assumption. Now, is your 16-year-old somebody different? Maybe it's not, maybe they don't fit that, possibly. But as a general rule, a 16-year-old with anybody over the age of 21 is not an appropriate relationship in and of itself. There's always exceptions, but as a general rule, not a good thing.